So thank you to Tanya, who's asked our latest Q&A question, which is, how do I handle a team member who always pushes back or argues? My first piece of advice around this one is to seek to understand where this person is coming from. So what is the root cause of the arguing? Now, it might be tempting just to think that the person has always just been difficult or obnoxious, but the reality is sometimes people are pushing back for a variety of reasons, which might include, obviously, they genuinely have a different perspective. They can see ways in which things could be done differently. It could be that they don't have a clear understanding of what it is that you are asking for them to do. Let's start with the assumption that there might be more that we need to understand about where this person is coming from. Sometimes it's not convenient when people push back because we as a leader would like to just get on with it. We've made a decision. We want the team to basically do what we've asked them to do. Check yourself as well to make sure that you are being open-minded and that you are actually willing to take on board feedback from team members who have the courage or the willingness to speak up. That's not to suggest they always do it in ways that are helpful, but again, just stop and reflect. Is there a genuine reason why this person might be challenging my perspective? Also reflect on whether or not this person is feeling various emotions, like they're frustrated for some reason, or they don't feel that they have the level of control or influence that they want to have in their role. It may be that they fundamentally have a lack of trust in the strategy that you're deploying, the people who are making the decisions, or obviously even in you as the leader and your approach. Start by being open-minded. Let's ask questions that come from a place of curiosity and seek to understand them more. Then it's about making sure that you remain in a logical headspace, resisting the tendency that we can sometimes have to become emotionally charged because of our own frustrations. The more we can actually stay in a composed space, the more likely we are to genuinely listen, hear, and respond in ways that are constructive. Try to maintain focus on the facts at hand. One of the common mistakes leaders make is they will start to get into debate with the person rather than actually anchoring the focus of the conversation on what we do know. There's no doubt that many circumstances, people are more likely to be reasonable if they feel that they've been genuinely heard. We can acknowledge someone's perspective without necessarily agreeing with it or accepting their recommendation or their preferred ways of going about something. That can be as simple as saying, look, I hear where you're coming from, I understand. If you paraphrase back to this person, so what I'm hearing you say is that in your view, you would rather see us take XYZ approach. I understand that thinking. However, what I would like us to do is whatever it is that you would like instead. Often it makes sense to ask clarifying questions. This might be as simple as asking what specifically is concerning you about this particular approach. Then it's about making sure that we are setting clear boundaries, because as much as I'm saying let's listen, let's empathise, let's seek to understand this person, where are they coming from, let's express understanding, the reality is we also at the same time need to maintain some pretty firm boundaries in that a healthy challenge and debate is acceptable, it's welcome. If you are the type of leader that truly wants to get the best out of your people and leverage all of their ideas, etc., then of course you want them to speak up when they have a different view. But at the same time, it's important that you set expectations that we engage respectfully and that when we are pushing back, when we are speaking up, that we're doing that in ways that are professional, they're courteous, and at the same time open-minded. In many circumstances, it will be important to again articulate, I've heard your perspective, I've taken it on board. On this occasion, I'm making a different decision, and what I'm asking for you to do is to get behind that decision and to support it. Don't be afraid to call people out, obviously respectfully, but to call people out firmly if you feel the pushback in the debate is now becoming unprofessional, disrespectful, rude, whatever it might be. Recently, I was working with a client who was dealing with exactly this issue, and what the individual said was, on the one hand, you're telling me to share my ideas and speak up, but on the other hand, you are telling me that I'm becoming argumentative. Specifically, the leader was saying, of course, you're encouraged to ask questions if you need answers to your questions. So what this individual was saying was, well, you're telling me to ask questions, but then you're taking issue with me when I'm asking too many questions. In this particular case, the leader had made a decision, communicated that to her. She raised concerns and asked questions. So he responded to that, to which she raised concerns and asked questions, to which he responded to that, to which she raised concerns and ask questions. This scenario is a classic example of the difference between asking reasonable questions and actually just becoming argumentative. So my feedback to this individual when she asked me the question, well, how do I know what the difference is? Well, if you've asked the question 3 times and you still don't have the answer that you would like, it's probably time to let it go. Ultimately, your leader is here to make a decision. Of course, it's important for them to be open-minded. Of course, it's important for them to listen to your perspective. But once they've done that and they've made a decision, any reasonable person would expect that you then accept that and move on. Again, it's important to hold firm boundaries, remembering that we always want to be calm, we want to be composed, but we want to be fair, but we also want to be firm in maintaining those boundaries around the reasonableness. So we want to be encouraging people to think about solutions. Sometimes people are pushing back and arguing by throwing more problems into the mix. Well, this isn't going to work for this reason, or it's not going to work for that reason, or yeah, but, or whatever it might be. Encourage people to be part of the solution. So ask questions like, what would you suggest? How would you recommend that we actually solve this challenge? Because it can be very easy for people just to come and dump their problems at your desk and expect them to fix it, expect you to fix it, should I say. But the more you keep the person involved in thinking through, well, what is the solution, and getting them to think for themselves, the more likely you're going to have shared accountability for that particular challenge, and then hopefully, again, reduce the risk of actually getting into full-blown arguments about it. Of course, if somebody is behaving these ways consistently, you need to get to a place where you're then having a really upfront, honest conversation with them. That would go something along the lines of, I welcome you speaking up, I welcome you sharing ideas. In fact, there is a lot that you can contribute to this team, but what I am asking is that you are mindful of when it is that you're becoming argumentative as opposed to reasonably challenging. And what argumentative looks like is, for example, when we were in this meeting, so you need to be able to give the person specific insights to when is it that they have just been resistant and pushing back, as opposed to when it is that they've made a reasonable contribution in challenging the thinking or speaking up in whatever way was necessary. It's important that you know when to escalate. As I say, this is not something that you should just endlessly tolerate. You do need to get to a point where it is a behavioural concern. So when it comes to performance management, I'm a passionate believer. It's not just what people do, it's how they go about it that is important. If you constantly are facing these issues, then you need to start to, again, have those conversations so the person can understand that they are not currently being successful in their role because they're unwilling or unable to behave with a spirit of cooperation, to demonstrate open-mindedness, follow reasonable management instruction, whatever it is. So to sum all of this up, most reasonable human beings, if they are pushing back and arguing, there'll be a reason for it. It may not always be a reasonable reason in your mind, but there'll be a reason for it. And if we remain professional and calm, but firm and fair, as I've said, most people will get the message and understand the difference between how they're behaving and how you want them to behave. But you're also going to find people who are just difficult. They are argumentative. You may, for example, have someone in your team who genuinely thinks they know better than you and they know better than everybody else. This is why I always say recruitment is the backbone of your people strategy. If you're hiring that person into your team, life gets really hard. But if you have hired that person, then recognise that that's the case. Obviously, apply a fair and reasonable process to addressing the issue, as I've said, raising concern around their behavioural alignment with what you need. But ultimately, if this doesn't get better, you've got to call it. You've got to move this person out of your team. Because as we're saying, there is a very big difference between being challenging and speaking up because there are better ideas and better ways of working versus being arrogant, closed-minded, lacking in emotional intelligence to the extent that any point of disagreement or misalignment becomes an argument. There's only so much you're going to be able to do to shift that person's mindset. So if you took value from this video, please press that like button and the follow button to hear more about leading people. If you also want to learn more about engaging in challenging conversations, we have e-learning courses that you can certainly leverage. So we have difficult conversations and difficult conversations for leaders available on our website. Thanks for watching.